Ladies and gentlemen, longtime listeners of the show, that friendly face. Hopefully you're watching on youtube.com/cover3. He's not dead. You all have been filling the 5-star mailbag with RIP Barton for years. Joe claiming it's a ghost. That's not a ghost. That is the general manager of Vanderbilt football, Mr. Barton Simmons. Barton, how you doing?
What's up, guys? You guys are so evolved from when my last time here was. You guys are live streaming. You got comments on the side. I'll start you out with the story. Speaking of RIP Barton. So we were out at a service event, like a community service deal with the team. And this was probably, spring. And this was in town. Someone came up to me and was like, hey, like, Barton, I'm a big Cover 3 fan. And I was like, oh, man, yeah, that's great. Great to meet you, man. Thanks for saying hi. Yeah, appreciate it. Awesome. And he was like, yeah, like, I actually, they talk about you all the time. I know you used to be on the pod, but like, it's good to finally meet you. This guy had become a Cover 3 fan since my departure from Cover 3 and only knows about me, not from my time on Cover 3, but from RIP Barton. And so I appreciate you guys keeping my name alive. However, it's a little sobering to know that
you were more famous for Cover 3.
A whole swath of fans of this show that like didn't actually even hear me on the show. And so that makes me feel a little aged, but it is what it is, I guess.
How's the aging process going, being a part of a Power 5 staff and constantly having to work the roster? We got to talk to you, a little bit all throughout the journey. You, of course, joined us after that first SEC win. So how are you doing right now? What do you think has sort of evolved or changed in terms of your approach to doing the job of being a general manager in the SEC?
I'm having a blast. I mean, this is like, I'm having the time of my life. I think we're doing it. Like, I feel really confident in what we're building, what we're doing, where we're going. I think it's like there's an inevitability about what's going to happen here. I think everyone in the building believes that, and probably not a lot of people outside the building yet. But I think like we hit on 50% of uncommitted guys that came into our building this summer on official visits. 50% of them committed, and like those are guys with. Look, I mean, those are really good players, and we're guys we're really excited about. And I think that speaks to like what, the belief is and how people can feel it once you get inside this building. When you see the way we operate, you see that like the processes in place and all these sort of things. When you hear Clark, our head coach, talk, like, and then when you watch us practice, I mean, all these things, like when you see it up close, it's there's an inevitability to this, man. I really believe that. And so yeah, man, I'm having a blast. One of the interesting things is when you first get here in a program and like you're building processes and like you're reinventing the way to approach things, it's really easy to like dive in and attack those things and have total conviction about how to do it. The hard part is like maintaining that, being consistent with what those standards you set and those processes you put in place. And so that's like, I think we're at a good point in which like we feel great about the process we've built, the results they've led in terms of the way the roster's starting to shift. And now it's about like making sure we stay really dialed in and true to those and consistent with them.
All right, either they have these lights on a timer or I'm about to like lose the internet too here at the office.
You just stand up and wave your arms.
Yeah, seriously.
And
eco-friendly CMT building, I guess.
Yeah, right, there you go.
Dude, I love the backdrop. That's awesome.
Yeah, you like that? That's what I look at every day. Just these cranes, just knocking things down and putting things up. There's a lot of drilling, a lot of banging. It's like it'd be your son's dream to look out this window because it's just diggers just excavating and scooping and flattening, and it's cool to watch, man.
Can't hide that SEC money, man.
That's right.
we actually had we've been tackling some mailbag questions. The 5-star mailbag, which was of course launched when we had the the epic summer of 2020, which brought Barton A&M to life, and CPU and Fernelli Tech, and the story of being a bouncer, at the Slayer concert.
Slayer.
Right?
Yep. Slayer and Toads.
Yeah, the Slayer concert at Toads. So this actually was a question that's right in your wheelhouse. This is from Jermel. I really enjoy listening to this pod on the regular. Great chemistry between the group. Mailbag question. A few shows back, Chip referred to Bud as a future college football general manager. Can you all share more about why schools having general managers is important, and what advantages do they provide? What background are schools looking for in this type of role? Former players, coaches, media personalities. What do they actually do for the team? Do they just handle recruiting and roster building? Do different schools have nuance in how they implement this role? Great pod. I listen all year.
All right. Well, okay. So for us, I think general manager means different things, different places. I think for some people, a general manager can be like almost like a chief of staff. We actually have a chief of staff here. And I think in a lot of places, a general manager occupies that kind of position. For us, the chief of staff, a guy named Ben Cawthon, does a really good job. He sort of like manages the building, manages non-football operations in the building, and the employees, and just sort of a catch-all. For me, the general manager role is much more about roster building, roster construction, talent acquisition, talent retention. And so within that, there's a lot of layers to it. It's managing our sort of recruiting department, scouting department, recruiting, and then obviously within that is transfer portal, and there's a NIL strategy, retention strategy, roster projection, like all those things. But I think ultimately for us and for Clark's vision and what we do, like the coaching profession is so transient by nature. And we're out here. I think we got a chance to have continuity over year and sort of retain our staff in a way that maybe some other schools don't. I think that'll be an advantage for us over time. But regardless, just the nature of the profession is transient. It's moving around, and I think if you don't have systems in place that allow for you to recruit over time to a certain standard, and for that standard to be really well defined over time, you're going to struggle. And as coaches come in, there's a natural inclination as a coach. I want to go and I'm going to come competitive, and I want to go get the best players I can find, and I want to build my resume up. But like if someone isn't sort of overseeing that and holding coaches accountable and making sure that each individual coach's recruitment fits into the bigger vision, then you're gonna have a lot of volatility, and your roster's gonna have peaks and valleys and ups and downs. But for us, like, we have a really clear plan of being a developmental program that retains our roster and recruits from high school and builds these guys up, high developmental upside guys with traits. All those things are sort of like that only works if we have someone that maintains that vision. And I think for Clark, at least, I mean, a lot of coaches want to be head coaches want to be really engaged in recruiting and scouting. Clark is really engaged in recruiting, really engaged in building relationships and connecting with families and being with these guys when they're on campus. But he takes, he sort of hands a little bit of the talent acquisition part in terms of the identification process off to me, which allows him. There's a finite amount of time in every head coach's day. And so it allows him to do the things that he's really good at, really passionate about, a lot of which is like team building, culture building, setting standards within this program for when these guys get here. Because ultimately, like, for a coach, there's a lot of coaches that are really good recruiters, but what's the most important thing about being a head coach? I think the most important thing about being a coach is what is the experience those guys have when they're here. Mm-hmm. And Clark, when you divide up his 24 hours, you're going to put a lot of those hours, and that slice of the pie is going to go towards the players in the building, and he's pouring into them. And so in order to do that, he has to hand something off, and he's handing a lot of the just roster building portion of it to me, with oversight from him, but in partnership from him. But it just allows him to operate at a higher level in terms of the day-to-day of this program. And
that's where your relationship with the assistants has got to be, hey, you're pouring a lot of your time and energy into this guy. Does this guy fit? Right. Yeah. Like you're trying to make sure that all of the assistants are splitting up their pie and their 24 hours in a way that's going to be advantageous for you, which I assume means that you've got to have a good read on these recruits, right? And like understanding.
And we have to have a really good understanding of who we are and what we're trying to bring in. And we spend a ton of time as a staff pouring into like, what are we looking for specifically? And what we're looking for at Vanderbilt. Look, if I was at, I don't know, I'm not going to name another school, but if I was at another school in the SEC or otherwise,
Barton A&M. I remember you talking about Barton
A&M. Listen,
A&M.
Barton A&M had a different culture than Vanderbilt University. I'm just going to tell you. And so if I was at BAMU, I'm gonna look for a very different person, and I'm gonna recruit to a very different message. But at Vanderbilt, we have to know what our message is. We have to know what we recruit to, because again, if it's a retention plan, if it's a strategy around retention and development, then when guys get here, they can't be surprised by what they arrive at, and they have to be connected in the recruiting process to the things that are going to be messaged once they're here. And so, and I think another point to that also, when you talk about like, working with those coaches in that way, like I think one of the things that allows me to have this role in our building is my relation with Clark, the trust we have in that relationship, and the loyalty that he has from me. Like what I'm not trying to do is like, let's see how highly ranked my class can get so that I get a lot of headlines and then maybe I'll get a job somewhere else. No, like I actually, I want our guys to be as low rated as possible, because, I just want to get them. I want to get them on campus. And then, and over time, as we stack these classes, that's what's going to lead to that success. And Clark knows I'm going to be here. He knows I'm going to be with him. And so that again, I think gives him some peace of mind to build that continuity and sustainability.
I think that's a great point you bring up. Like if you're Georgia, your job is basically to get as many freaks as possible and then fit your scheme to the fact that like you have better athletes than everybody else in the world. Eventually you guys may get to Georgia's, level. But like right now, I do find like certain schools, when they're like, hey, we don't care about recruiting rankings. It's not that recruiting rankings are off, but it is easier to identify. You've done this, like the freakiest of the freaks. How important is it that you're on the same page with your coach, not only in terms of culture, but like, hey, we can sacrifice in this area for the recruit as long as he has sort of these, these areas we won't compromise on in terms of fit to find those inefficiencies.
Yeah, that's. I mean, again, like I think if you listen, I'm just going to say, let's just say Georgia, they just won the national championship last year. If I'm at Georgia, I don't care about rankings in the sense of like, I'm not going to recruit this guy because he's ranked this way. But over time, like I need to be recruiting top 5 classes every year because those are the players. That's the pool you're fishing from. Vanderbilt needs to beat SEC teams. They need, and SEC teams are filled with NFL football players. Vanderbilt is not going to beat other SEC teams that are full of NFL football players with amateur football players. We need NFL football players too. We're just going to go about getting them at this stage in the program in a little bit of a different way than some of these other schools. And so that we have to play against. So yeah, every guy that we're taking, we believe has an NFL future. We believe is going to be an NFL football player with the right development. But that's the key. Like we are a developmental program. When you look across the SEC, we had 9 guys leave this program in the transfer portal. We had 2 guys come into this program, scholarship players in the transfer portal. That is dramatically different than our peers. And I think both of those numbers are important. Both we're retaining our roster and we're not going and looking to replace you out of the portal. And by doing that, that allows us, again, like we're not valuing someone else's players over our own. Like we're saying, we got you here for a reason. Now we can't miss. That's why I think this role is so important. We can't miss, because once we get you here, it's not about, hey, you're not playing yet. It's about, look, those traits are still there. All those traits we believed in, the character is still there that we believed in. So how do we maximize that character? How do we maximize those traits rather, and get you where we need you to be over time? That over time is critical. That retention is critical. A lot of schools, they can walk in the office and say, hey, you're not going to play here. Well, okay, guess what? If I'm not going to play here, there's no reason for me to be here. I'm out. And because the education is, trade one education from the other is no different. At Vanderbilt, there's a reason to be here. There's something that's going to pull you here, but also we're not going and looking for someone to replace you with. And I think that's that's a mentality and a demeanor here that allows us to differentiate from our peers. And I think it's not something that's going to allow us to microwave instant success, but it's just something that's going to aggregate over time. And over time, I think like you're going to look up and all of a sudden, like we're going to be really, really good and beating really, really good teams. And people are going to be like, well, how did that happen? It's like, I know how it happened. I mean, y'all just weren't in the building, but it's been happening. And so I think that's what's exciting about what we're doing. And I think, fires us up about where we're headed.
Question from the chat. We got, speaking of those transfer portal additions, how's Prince Collie looking?
He's looking great. I mean, he's a really good player. I think he's gonna have a chance to really help us. I think the great thing about Prince and just about that, like he's gonna have to battle. I mean, he's gonna have to get in camp and go win a job, and he's gonna have to go get in camp and see what his role is. I mean, right now he's just been in t-shirt and shorts and lifting and running, and all those things have been, they've been good for him and good for us to see him. But what's exciting is, and this is really across the board, this is the first time since we've been here, is we have depth. We have players. Like our linebacker room actually, I think, is going to be a really strong position, both with the guys returning in Kane Patterson and Ethan Barr, who played a lot of snaps last year, but also in our young guys. Prince coming in, Langston Patterson was a freshman last year. He's going to be a really good player. Nick Rinaldi was a freshman last year that played. That's going to be a really good player. Bryce Cowan redshirted last year, who has as high a ceiling as anyone on the roster. I mean, there's a lot of guys I think that can play. And so again, you don't take Prince Collie in this building for us because, we got to force him to play. We took him because there was a relationship with him from Coach Lee and Coach Lazinski from recruiting him out of high school. And so when he went in the portal and had interest in coming here, in a lot of years, we weren't looking for a linebacker. We were looking, but Prince Collie was a really talented player who had a really strong relationship with our staff. And so we know he was going to fit into our culture and our building. And so he's going to strengthen us. And so Prince has got to fight for the role he wants, but it feels great to be able to add a guy like that and just bolster the depth of this roster. When we first got here, there was on the roster itself, we had, I think, like 97 players total. That was year one. We're maxed out this year. We have the 110 fall camp. We got a couple guys that don't be able to fall camp because we're over that number. Like we have the maximum amount of numbers that is allowable on our roster right now. And within that, we got some really good walk-ons. We have scholarship players with depth. It's the first time since we've been here where it feels like there is, we're sort of, we have lines of players that we can throw at the field, and that's exciting.
All right. So I do have, but before we let you go, I need to ask you a question.
Count 'em.
Wait, this one.
How many games y'all gonna win this fall?
Because the people are asking. Well, I mean, but seriously, like, how are we feeling? How are we feeling about the squad? The first year one, yeah. Adam says, I want you to know I just fired a mortgage payment on Vandy over 3.5 live. Just rocking with confidence in our doors here on the Cover 3 podcast. So the steps forward are just like so obvious. Like you come in year one and you're snapping like double-digit game losing streaks. You're snapping road losing streaks, things that had just sort of had fallen off prior to your arrival. Then all of a sudden you jump to 5-7 in year two with an SEC win against Florida, SEC win against Kentucky. You do a good job in the non-con play as well. And so now as you've got, your roster maxed out and as you're looking ahead to the schedule, how are we feeling? What's our focus on Vanderbilt football going into the year?
Well, I mean, listen, I have to answer this question as the Vanderbilt football general manager, not as pod mate Barton. So I can't go, but like, listen,
I just don't see it. I'm not expecting you to have listened to our win totals pod, but that your description of the Louisville football schedule remains the sounder for the win totals drop for every single win totals episode. I mean, I just don't see it. Not at the schedule I'm looking at, not unless there's another schedule somewhere.
You know what I was thinking is that soundbite. So that was from what Bobby Petrino's last year.
Yeah, the team that quit in the most amazing way possible.
so we're, first of all, like best, like that was a nailed the pick. But secondly, we're like 2 coaches removed from that soundbite now. I'm just like, the time's going by quick, boys. Like it's kind of wild.
So we actually were crazy, and we did a listener meetup last night over at Acme.
I thought about showing up at that, by the way, bud, but I had
you would have gotten soaked on the way. Like the storm was really, really bad. Good luck to Katie, right? Who has to take the bar exam next month. New listener, loves the Barton clip, recited like the whole intro song for it. So Katie, you're going to kill the bar exam. Awesome work on that. I will say my odds for Vanderbilt to make a bowl have tripled over what they were last year.
Okay.
Like,
good. Smart.
Yeah.
Listen, hey, we openly talk about postseason. Like we believe that it's time for us to make that jump, and that doesn't mean it's going to happen. But you know, we believe in this team and believe that this is a team that's capable of that. And so so we talk about, I mean, listen, every day the margins are going to decide whether we get there. And it's going to be tight games involved, and they could go either way. And so I think the only thing I would say is just, I think Vanderbilt at this stage is still a program that people look at, and you're going through the SEC and got to find wins, and you're just like, okay, yeah, Vanderbilt, that'll be a win. I just don't know. I'm trying to be as measured as I can, but like when you hear people talk about Vanderbilt, I just don't know how many people are really paying attention. I just don't. And I mean, we've got we went 5-7 last year, and that's we're not at all satisfied about that or beating our chest about that. What we were in that year one, I mean, golly, I mean, we were 2-10, and let's be real, like that was almost 0-12. Like that was not a fun season, and that was a battle and a challenge. And we feel like we made a lot of progress in getting to 5-7. You know, just this spring and this summer, the way this building acts around each other, the way this building interacts with football, the way these players are devoted to the process and to the and to improving as people and as players and connecting as a team. Like, it's just a totally different feel in this building, and we have the same team as last year.
Yeah.
I mean, we really do. It's,
it was crusting, right? Because it's like the Missouri game. Oh my gosh. Like right there, then South Carolina. And then like, boom, it's like the dam broke. And then you bring back that whole group.
And I think a lot of people look at, there's so many people in the media now. This is the way it works. It's the way I've sort of observed, is like when people look at what is a team going to look like year over year, what they say is like, okay, well, what transfer did they bring in? Like, what's like the dramatic shift? And it just goes back to what we talk about in our design and building this program is like, yeah, we didn't like, this isn't some overhaul roster from a 5-7 team. It's going to be a lot of the same players. We believe evolved versions of those same players, evolved versions of the chemistry, evolved versions of the understanding of our systems. And so I think with that, we have expectations to be able to take a step forward. We know what's in front of us. We know the challenges that are in front of us. I mean, if Hawaii's, we got to go be Hawaii, and and I'm nervous about them all. I mean, it's real, but what I do feel really confident in is just the day-to-day here and how different. I mean, so like you guys wouldn't believe just how different it feels. I mean, there's guys like when we first got here, we had to beg guys to come into the building and just like, and now these guys are here all the time on the field, all the time, getting extra work in all the time. And I think when you, and beyond that, there is like, you're talking about GPS numbers, you're talking about testing numbers, you're talking about heights, weights. Like, we are objectively, measurably, like significantly faster, significantly stronger, significantly bigger and longer year over year over year. And so that doesn't guarantee us anything. And I'm not promising anything, but I'm telling you, like, I do feel really good about the direction of this football program. I do feel like this is a football program that's going to be competing in time at the highest level in this conference. And I don't know when that's going to be, but I know that we're taking the right steps to get to that point. And I'm really excited about this season, and I like the guys we have in this building, and I know they're going to battle, and I'm pumped to see it.
The Warriors do arrive August 26th. We got Vandy in week 0 yet again. We'll have to go back and rewatch that 63-10 result from last year. 35-point third quarter. You're right. It was a little tense at first, but man, when the dam broke, that was a fun game to be able to take in week 0. Bud, you got anything else?
No, I was looking at some stuff from that crazy 2021 year, and like, even if you don't have access to Barton's GPS stuff, you see it in the coverage teams. I mean, like when they got there, Vanderbilt speed-wise was legitimately like MAC level coverage stuff. Like they were just, and you could see it. I mean, they were like bottom 10 in the country in punt coverage when they weren't fair caught, and kick coverage. And now, like last year, top half in the country in both. Like reasonable, like that's acceptable for an SEC team, and a huge jump from where they were. So like when you talk about, like, do they have a lot of guys that would start at like a Georgia? No, but there's tremendous value in making the bottom half of the roster competitive and having competitive depth, like for practice purposes. I'm not that you're going to give away the player dev secrets, but you've been in this is your third season now. Are you finding there are more advancements in player development that like can help you guys, gain an edge, even if it's a temporary edge than you realize going in? Now that you're on the other side,
in player, like you're talking about specific players, or like you're talking about processes for player development.
Like not that you have to explain what the processes are, but like have you guys found like, whoa, like there's a lot more stuff than I realized, being on the media side now that we're on this other side?
Well, I mean, I really think when you're talking about like developing a team, I mean, listen, we have everything everyone else has, and I think we have really good processes in place. None of it really matters except for like how disciplined are you and consistent are you in operating at a high level. And that's what Clark does a really good job with. Like, if you look at Clark's background in developing pros, he's done it everywhere he's ever been, whether it's Syracuse, Wake Forest, UCLA, Notre Dame, South Dakota State, Bowling Green, whatever. He's always produced pros. And that is not like, he doesn't have secret drills. What he's incredible at is like the mundanity of excellence, like the ability to just every day not hold the line, like hold guys accountable, set those standards and hold them to it. And I really think that's what is going to allow us to unlock that success over time, as long as we deliver to this roster the players with the traits that are necessary to get that upside. But you're right, Bud. I mean, like literally, I show recruits when they come and visit what our GPS numbers were in 2021, what our GPS numbers were in 2022, and what they're going to be in 2023 is going to be significantly. I mean, like it's dramatic, and that the aggregate of that is powerful, and so it's just stair steps, man. It's just taking those steps 1 year at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 game at a time, 1 week at a time, all that. And that all sounds a little cliche, but being over here on this side of it, it's what we have big visions, like really big visions here, and they're big enough to where people outside the building like kind of laugh at it. And what I'm telling you guys is, I you cut me open and like I believe in them, and this thing's going to happen here. And so make your future bets on Vanderbilt, Bud. I don't know what you can get, and I don't know. I've lost the gambling lingo. I'm not allowed to talk gambling anymore. But
they're going to drop Barton in Las Vegas on September 23rd.
That's right.
Silly.
Yeah,
some silly rules are going to prevent him from being able. Hey, listen, we're keep focus on the Rebs. I understand, 100%.
I do have a restaurant rec. If you guys happen to get out there a day early, the NBA guy turned me on to it. I'll hit you if you like Thai food.
I do like Thai food. All right.
Okay, yeah, I'll text you.
Get it done.
Barton, this has been really cool. Just ever since like you got hired, all throughout the process, you've allowed Cover 3 to be able to, get an insight into the journey. And we're really proud of you, man. We're when we say our doors, we are like rooting with our hearts for you and the squad to have some success.
Well, I appreciate it. Same. I feel like you guys have once you cut me loose, you kind of really took off as a pod. So I'm just glad I still get a little airtime every once in a while with you guys. So keep it going. I hope to, make an appearance late night one night after a surprise W or something.
That would be October 14th after taking down the Dogs in Nashville. That's when we're going to have it.